The year is 2013. I had started filming my documentary about people living in Uganda who have experienced extreme challenges and are now survivors. I learned about these survivors through a woman whose name is Victoria Nalango Namasisi. Victoria opened up a children's home called Bright Kids Uganda. She rescued street children and provided for them shelter, food, education, and most of all, love. She told me about a young man who was a former street child. She found him a long time ago in Katwe slums. He now has his own children's school and home for former street children, and he is a school teacher. I told her I wanted to meet him, and that is all I knew in the year 2013. I traveled to the school in Nadeji, Uganda, to meet the school teacher at his school. He was eager to meet me and wanted me to film him and to film his school children. When I arrived, he told me to climb a wooden ladder so I could have a good view of the schoolyard. I climbed the wooden ladder and sat on a brick wall. I wanted to capture the images of him and the school children on my camera. I had no idea what was going to happen, and I sat and I waited. Then I heard the school bell ringing. Victoria had told me beforehand there were about 450 children in this school, and I saw hundreds of children pouring out of the classrooms. Some of them I knew were former street children, and I tried to see through my camera lens who were the former street children. I know for sure they were there. I was surprised to see the hundreds of children forming a line behind the school teacher as he walked slowly on the school path. I was so impressed how orderly they were lining up behind him. They all appeared happy, smiling, and healthy. Some were in school uniforms and some were not. Soon, all of the school classrooms were empty. As he continued walking on the school path, I saw him picking up a small child in a yellow shirt. He then started walking towards me. I could see the quiet pride in his face, proud of his school and the children he teaches. All of the children stopped and looked up at me. They all looked so happy, eager to smile for me and my camera. And I thought, who in this crowd of smiling faces were the former street children? For 7 more years, I captured on my camera the life of this school teacher, this survivor. And most of all, I want to share with you how he survived. His name is Bugembi Medi, and this is his story. Soon after my school visit, I arranged to meet with Victoria and Medi one day in Kampala. She told me how she was involved in the Uganda Scout movement and the Scout project helping street children to get off the streets. She told me that she met Medi under an umbrella tree where she would sit with food and talk with the street children, encouraging them to join the Scout movement. So walking towards the city square, we met Medi on the street. I followed him with my camera. We arranged to meet under the umbrella tree, which was the place where Medi met Victoria when he was a very, very young boy. We're going to go to the place where she found Medi when he was 10 years old, a street child, right here. Now Medi is a grown man. He has his own children's home, and he has quite a story to tell. We're walking into the city square now.
And to sit under the umbrella tree, it was the only good tree where we could sit under.
While sitting under the umbrella tree with Victoria, Medi talked about his life as a young child. He said his father divorced his mother when he was 1 month old. His father remarried, and Medi spent the first 5 years of his life with a very cruel stepmother. She and the stepchildren would often beat him.
Now, your family beat you because your father remarried a stepmom. And can you show me how badly they beat you?
Yeah, they used to beat me. For example, look at this leg.
He showed me the deep scars on his leg. His stepmother would beat him with a bicycle lock. He was beaten so badly he could see the bone. A kind neighbor named Rose took him to a local health clinic. It took 6 long months for his leg to heal. I thought to myself, how could someone be so cruel to beat a child so young? He was only 5 years old. I asked him, why were you being beaten? He said, because he would not sweep the area around his village home.
When did you come here to be a street child?
It was 1995, January 1st, because they wanted to beat me at home on the 31st of December, 1994.
He decided to run away from home because his stepmother threatened to beat him again. The night before he ran away from home, Mehdi took some clothes from his stepbrother, and during the night, he climbed a tree to hide. On January 1st, 1995, Mehdi boarded the bus to Kampala. He heard from the village boys that you can find a job in Kampala. He thought that if he made money, he would return back to his village rich, and then no one would torture him. Mehdi did not even know where or what Kampala was. He just knew that when all of the people got off the bus, then it must be Kampala. On January 1st, 1995, Mehdi stepped off the bus in Kampala. Remember, he was only 5 years old.
On the 1st of January 1995, I was in Kampala. My intention of coming to Kampala, I wanted to get jobs. I thought that when I come to Kampala, I would just be given a job because I was told in Kampala there are very many people. Whenever you want a job, you just ask and you are given a job. So I was asking whoever could pass by me. I could tell him all the story in the village, and I end up asking for a job.
At 5 years old?
5 years old. So they could say, no, don't take that boy. That boy is very wise. Those are street kids. He's going to steal the things from the house, and the husband will chase you from the family.
Mehdi said he spent his first night in Kampala as a street child. That first night on the streets, it was raining so hard, and he was forced to sleep in the rain. He told me that he was crying so hard, and this is how he spent his first night as a street child.
How did you end up being a street child? I mean, surprisingly, you survived.
So after one day, the following day, while I was in Kampala, I saw that one boy who was dirty. And I thought, now I had forgotten all the journey we had covered with the bus. From here I thought all dirty people come from our village. And the rest of Uganda is Kampala. And the people in Kampala are clean. Yeah. So when I saw this dirty boy, I decided to follow him. When I followed him, we sloped down to a place called Katimba, where they had an oath. There was very many takeaways and those small hotels. So I just saw him eating from the garbage. So I had to eat because I was so hungry. We had to eat in that garbage. He led me to a big group of street children. And I said, wow, these are street children. And I didn't know that I am also becoming a street child.
What was it like on the streets? I asked Mehdi. What would happen to you in the night, and what would happen to you when you woke up in the morning? Mehdi learned at the tender age of 5 how to sniff petrol.
So he taught me how to take that petrol, sniffing.
Sniff petrol.
Uh-huh.
What did it make you feel like? Why did you do that?
It was paining in the north at first. But when the time went by, I got used to it. And he taught me different areas where we can get what to eat. Then I was now I became I became part of what was taking place. He taught me very many things. He taught me how to look for scraps, those from the garages,
selling,
for selling, so that we can buy that petrol which we used to sniff. So,
Why were you sniffing? Because I've been given different versions. I want to know from you. Why were you sniffing that aviation fuel?
So now for me, they gave me reasons why I had to sneeze. They told me that when you fail to do this, you will not sleep outside because it is too cold. When you take it, you cannot feel that coldness because your brain now is not working. You just sleep so well. Even if they beat you, you don't hear, you just continue sleeping. That's why you see these state council officers used to kill some of the street boys because they could hit on the head and you could not run because the brain is not working, you are not feeling.
Mehdi then explained how he would sleep in the trenches, under the bridges, in tunnels, on verandas, and on the open ground. Remember, he was only a 5-year-plus little boy. And then Mehdi then explained how and where he would eat.
That food which is being left by the people after buying the food, they eat and leave the leftovers. We could eat that one. And at times, what is hurting me so much now is that at times we used to find even the dogs eating in the same part.
Yeah, they were fighting with the dogs.
We
and
fight
the
with
birds.
the dog, we fight with the birds to eat the same food. So we used to survive in that way because it was the only way we could survive.
Mehdi, what was it like in the mornings when you would wake up? What would you see?
In the morning, as we used to wake up, we used to go down there near Queen's Way, in that big trench. We used to wash our eyes with that one.
Could you tell me how many people survived? How many of the children you were with survived this? Or
The people that I was with that survived, there are so many.
I believe there are so many. Actually, I would remember the few are the dead ones.
so, Mehdi, when you would wake up in the morning, you told me that you would see just dead bodies.
We used to see our friends like that cholera and Ebola period.
Yeah.
You used to wake up in the morning, you slept with someone, and in the morning you find that person dead there. So the police could be called and collect the dead body.
They come to take the dead body.
They come to take the dead body.
How many dead bodies would you see at one time?
We used to see one, like you can see one where you have slept, then you got the garbage, you find also someone died from there.
So you would see it all around you?
Yeah.
You were talking about cholera?
Yeah, and typhoid.
There was no any way of escaping the diseases that come from that environment, because we used to wash our eyes from those trenches, that water, sewages. We wash from there. Then we used to eat this food which has been thrown, that is left over. Then after the flies have fallen on those edibles and it has been left there for so many hours, we could come and eat that same food. So there was no any way of us escaping diseases, typhoid, cholera, and so on.
I learned from Mehdi that death was always lurking in the slums, seeking out the street children. When it would rain, the rains would sweep away the street kids. Their bodies would float down the street. Mehdi would find the dead bodies in the morning. His friend Kukuba was a friend for 5 years. Kukuba had told Mehdi the previous day that he was sick, his stomach hurt. And when Mehdi was 10 years old, he woke up one morning and Kukuba was dead. At age 10, Mehdi saw the police take his friend's dead body away. He said he cried. Meeting Victoria under the umbrella tree was the turning point in Medi's life as a street child. One day, Medi joined the other street children and found this woman sitting under a tree in the city square. He heard that she would give them food. He did not realize at the time that this was the beginning of the end of his life on the streets.
I would find him seated here, and then we would have our bananas, share the bananas that I have. What do you remember? What else did I used to bring? For example,
bananas, mangoes, and sugar canes, popcorns, and at times rice.
And these young people knew that every day they would expect me to pass by here between 4:30 and 5:30. I would leave my office at President's office and come here with all the shopping. What else do you remember? What used to happen here?
Before we could get something to eat, you used to come and talk to us before we get something to eat. You encourage us to be good people, that maybe in the future we can become some very important people in the country. And after talking to us, encouraging us, we used to eat. So when we saw Madame Victoria starting to come and give us food, give us what to eat, really we saw her our comforter.
Victoria not only gave the street children food, but she was involved in the Scout project, which enrolled street children. Medi wanted to become a Scout, and within 2 years was soon heading out to Kazi, the Uganda Scouts headquarters.
Medi was very different from the others, and I always kept wondering whether he came from a deeply religious family or whatever. It was very easy to rehabilitate him. For example, he's not among those who stole the electrical gadgets from home for whatever selling and so on. He was very good, but quite a number of his friends used to steal. One other thing I remember about them, whenever we sat here, one would guard my bag so that it is not stolen. And the other people who used to pass by were laughing at me how I could trust my bag with the street kids. But I trusted this group which I was already working with. And quite a number of them used to steal what to eat. Actually, that's why Diana, when she was told to take the Scout promise, she said, Auntie Scout, I can't take the Scout promise because you said in the Scout promise we have to be trustworthy. I can't be trustworthy when I'm on the street. I have to steal something that I'm going to eat. Otherwise, I will not survive.
And Victoria sent Medi and other street children to Nairobi to join another Scout training program. Medi told me that on his way to Nairobi, he was appointed the leader and proudly carried the Uganda flag. He said he so wished his father could see him now. When he returned from Nairobi, he never went back to the streets. Victoria took him to her children's home, Bright Kids Uganda.
Do you remember your first meal?
Yeah, I remember it.
What was
we
it?
wanted to come back on the streets, and we thought that day we are not going to eat. So we just saw Mommy Victoria coming with a lot of food, a lot of bananas, and the mangoes. So our first meal, my friend, that was a miracle I got because I had spent 5 years without eating that hot food, and the food which is really prepared for me to eat for all those 5 years. So our first meal was matoke, rice, and meat. That was a miracle.
His life then changed. He had a bed, and the only place where he got life, he found love. He found happiness and security in this new home, and soon forgot all of the bad things and hardships. Victoria loved him as her own child.
Then I started admiring what Mommy Victoria used to do. And I was feeling so bad for these people who are still on the streets, for those people who are struggling with life. So I just woke up one day and said, maybe one day I'm going to also help some people so that in their future they again talk good things about me, like they start seeing me the way I'm seeing Mommy Victoria. So that inspired me. I could pass this place and see those street kids, and I recalled how I was for some times back. So I said, now let me now change. You know, I didn't want to go to school, but helping these people, I thought that I have to be speaking English. I had to be educated.
Empowered, yeah.
So I continued studying with that idea that after studying, I'm going to come back and help these street kids who are struggling with life. So that was my goal, and I continued with it, and she supported me by paying my school fees, by talking to me, by showing me love as a kid at home. So I did not regret what she did to me. She could do things, and I could say, let me help.
Mehdi also started school. He started in primary 1 with all of the other 5-year-olds. He was 10 years old and the biggest and oldest in the class. But soon he advanced and would skip grades. He then entered secondary school, and soon Mehdi was training to be a pastor. Then he entered college and became a teacher. This was the beginning of Mehdi's lifelong goal and dream of helping the street children.
I had not enough space. I had to leave them. Up to now, they are not in school, because if we get any chance for them, we are also willing to take them.
He told me how we started the small group, Reaching Street Kids Uganda, in Katwe. He rented 2 rooms and started out with 70 street children. Soon he had 150 children.
So my self-helping children, all the words, now when I remember those words, I'm inspired, and I continue to help more and more and more street children, orphans, and those people, they are those helpless people, because she used to talk to us and tell us, you know, I'm doing this so that you can do the same things to those people who are suffering with life, like the way I found you suffering.
And how are you helping these children? What are you doing?
Now I collect them from the streets. I collect them like those orphans. I collect them from their relatives, because the relatives are also poor. So I collect them and put them to the place that I'm renting, so that I can care for them. I provide them with education that I can afford, food, medical care, clothing, and all things that a parent would have done to his or her children.
But how do you earn money? What do you do?
I organize music concerts. You know, I'm a gospel artist. So from the money that I have got is the one that I use to at least to provide what they can eat, to pay the workers, to pay the rent for the place where they are sleeping. So I only organize music concerts.
Oh, so you're a performer.
I'm a performer.
Yeah, she's
You're a
a
performer.
gospel music, yeah.
Can you sing a song
Yeah.
underneath the umbrella tree?
Obulamu bwange Yesu yabufuula bwa muwendo, eby'omu maaso Yesu yabifuula bijja, sikyalinga bwe nnali, sikyayitibwa ekyo kye nnali, obulamu bwange Yesu yabufuula bwa muwendo.
What he is saying is that Jesus helped him to change his life. He is no longer the person that he was. He sings how they used to steal and do all the bad things and wear rags, but now they dress smartly. Now they are responsible people. They have lives and now have value, because before that, their lives had no value. Mehdi started that song in 2001. He modified it a bit, and then he put it on CDs. The chorus that is being repeated, Abu Labu Wanji, means, my life is now having value. Jesus turned my life around, and now it has value. Before, my life had no value, because if you sleep on the street, then your life has no value. If you sleep in the trenches, then your life has no value. But now, there is a value unto their lives. Mehdi told me that the 2 rooms were not enough for these 150 street children he rescued. He knew he had to expand and had a vision of founding a school and center for these street kids. His dream came true, and he officially opened up his school called Great Kings and Queens Children's Center on February 4th, 2013. During the 7 years when I would travel to Uganda, I would always visit Medi and visit his school. One year, I followed Medi to his school and saw children walking on the muddy red road. One thing that impresses me is Medi's strong belief that education can open doors from the world of poverty into a world of hope. Every time I would visit, I would see changes and improvements in his school. He proudly introduced himself in his Great Kings and Queens office.
My name is Bugembe Medi, the founder and director of the Great Kings and Queens Children's Center.
The school vision is a simple statement. It's what Medi believes is the right for every child.
These ones are all my children now. I'm the father, I am the everything to them. So they also need you because I'm alone with them as a parent. All of the number that you are seeing.
And this is all because of Victoria.
And this is all because of Victoria. Because she made me what I am today, and I decided to also do the same to the fair people who are suffering like in the same way I did for the past years.
When I toured his school's humble grounds, I could see that he meets the children's basic needs: food, clean water, and shelter. The students have their school chores, they gather firewood, they clean their plates, and I saw the students had a safe place to sleep, but most of all, they have a place to learn.
The number here is the number that I got from Katwe areas. Some of them are from poor families, some of them are from the streets, and the others are orphans. They sleep here. This is their home, where they need to be fed, where they need to be accommodated, assisted, given medical assistance. So this is their home now.
I looked into the classrooms. I saw wooden benches and desks, dirt floors, and small rooms. Even though the school was very basic, what I saw was the most important. Learning was going on. Children always had their pencils and notebooks ready. The blackboards were filled with knowledge, and they all had smiles on their faces. I was given the opportunity to award primary certificates to the students who passed Primary 7. This was important because it gave them the opportunity to go on to secondary school learning. If they failed this important test, their education came to a stop. And if they passed, they continued on to secondary school and higher learning. The children's learning day starts early in the morning before the sun rises. Teaching and learning continues throughout the day. The school day runs into the evening hours, and then the children do their homework with little light available, and then to bed. Medi has a very dedicated teaching and school staff. He has about 20 teachers, plus he has cooks and matrons to watch over the children. All work long days, morning to night. One thing that I noticed the most was how respectful the students were while in school. They were respectful to their teachers and helpful to the staff, and always polite. Every year since 2016, Medi would work with a University of Pittsburgh intern. 2016 was the year disaster struck Great Kings and Queens. All Uganda schools were delayed in their opening because of fear of violence during the political elections. Medi had to close his school. Because of this, he did not receive any tuition from the parents and school children, and he was facing enormous bills. He could not pay the rent, and he was close to losing his school. Then a miracle happened. The university intern, Nick, came to work with Medi. It was hard at first as both had to get to know each other. Medi had to open up his school to Nick to learn how we can help, and they both knew that there was a deadline of 3 months to find a financial plan or the school would be closed. Nick jumped right in and worked closely with Mehdi and Victoria. He immersed himself within the school community and soon earned the respect from the students and most of all, from Mehdi. Nick and Mehdi worked hard for 3+ months to save the school from financial disaster.
Need help.
Absolutely.
So it is still my prayer, and it was my prayer that we develop here.
We must develop. The concern that I understand everyone has is we must have either ownership or a secure long-term lease at a reasonable price, at a good price.
Victoria and my husband Lou met with Mehdi to finalize plans. And Mehdi listened,
At a fair
listened,
price.
and
It's
listened.
also possible to have a long-term, say a 5-year lease, but at a very good price, so you can't get kicked out.
He was determined to save his school, and he could not let the street children that he saved, he could not let them down. Nor could he let down the several hundred neighborhood children. Many came from very poor families. Mehdi and Victoria talked intently about the dangers of losing his school. After many meetings, Mehdi, Nick, Lou, and Victoria had a plan. High on the list was to hire an accountant to help Mehdi organize and manage his bills. Next came a plan to fundraise money to save his school. Nick and Mehdi worked so hard for 3 long months, and with much hard work and planning, his school was saved. Nick would share with me his frustrations and his fun stories. I would often see Nick with the children, encouraging them to be good students.
For you, it's a blessing. And how is studying? Yeah? What are you studying today? English! Yes! Who likes English? Hands up. And if you don't like English, hand up. Really? I said, yeah, any day. And she thought about it and she said, can it be Christmas? I said, your birthday is on Christmas? That's wonderful. Wow. Just really cute.
At the end of 3 months, Mehdi's school was saved. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, Mehdi would return to Victoria's Bright Kids Uganda Children's Home, where Mehdi had lived with Victoria a very long time ago. He would return to speak to the University of Pittsburgh interns who would come to Uganda for a few months every year to study and intern. We always made arrangements for them to meet Mehdi. Mehdi would welcome the interns. He always started out by telling them the story of his life, talk about his great Kings and Queens school, and mostly about his life in Katwe.
That's Kiboga district, far away from Kampala. That is in the Buganda region. So after my mother and the father got married. So when they got married, it was legal marriage. My mother told me that he spent there a month, and those are 4 weeks. I don't know why they separated with my dad. So she divorced with the pregnancy. She didn't know.
He would reveal more details about his mother and mostly about his father.
From another man's family. That's where I grew up from, up to the age of 3. At the age of 3, my real dad came for me. He took me to his home, and that's where I found 6 wives of one man. So I don't know whether you are aware, but here in African culture, co-wives, some of them are not good. It is the same case I passed through, that I was tortured.
Every time Mehdi would speak, I would capture on my camera his words and stories, and every time learn more and more about his early life and life as a street child.
The age of 0 to 10, you will not say 5 to 0, because some of them are born there. So those people pass through a very hard life just because they will not have clothes. Their parents are also starving because they are on the streets. So they sleep on the streets, they spend the whole day on the street. So they don't have clothes, they don't have food, they don't have where to live. If it rains like you see this is a rainy season, it will rain on them and they will run to nobody. The authorities of Kampala, like the state council department,
His life and the lives of the street children kept unfolding as my camera captured his heart-wrenching
I
stories.
speak this one with clear evidence just because I was there. Even by the time Mommy Victoria brought us here, brought some children with wounds, they get pieces of wood, the state council officials, then they target like they are these children are sleeping. So they come hitting on the head. Some children die. Even those young ones, like you said, of 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, they die and they are collected, the bodies are collected in the morning.
Then we would take the interns to Great Kings and Queens School. I often wondered what the interns' impressions would be, what they thought of the school and the children, the living conditions. At times, I would capture their emotions, disbelief, wonderment, and concern. I so wish I could have read their minds. I would see some taking notes and all asking many questions. And Medi shone like a star. When they met the children, their smiles, relief, and excitement could be felt, and I captured it on my camera.
Amachamalunji. 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 Yeah. Amachamalunji. Good luck on your exams.
Next on the tour, Medi's final stop was Katwe. I was concerned how we would look like to the people who lived in Katwe, with 15 white people walking around looking at them. My fears were soon gone when we were greeted by the Katwe local political leaders. They warmly welcomed us, told us about Katwe, the problems, and success stories. They also said, please take photos. Please talk to the people who live here. And most of all, do not forget them. When we left the local Katwe leader's office, we then went to face the realities of Katwe. All of us feeling much more relaxed. Questions, comments flowed, plus cameras started clicking. Medi took the lead and guided the interns to tour Katwe. He wanted them to see with their own eyes what his life was like in Katwe slums. And as we walked, he relived his life in the slums. We would cross the rickety and slippery bridges and would always end up at the garbage dump, the dust bin, where Medi spent 5 years of his life eating and sleeping. The bravest of the interns joined Medi in the dump, always listening closely as he described how he survived. Even though I have been back to Katwe for many times with Medi, each time I would visit, I would feel the impact and the horror of how someone could live in this, the poorest of the slums. The lack of clean water, the lack of food and shelter. It was as if it was always my first time. Soon, children joined us, and for a short period of time, the dirty water, poor living conditions, the mud roads, all faded away. And we were then just people meeting people, laughing, talking with the children, asking questions to the leaders, And soon Katwe became not the slum I thought it was, but a living, vibrant community, providing homes, food, water, and a life to the thousands who live here. Seeing them as people and not just those living in the Katwe slums, it became, in my mind, a living community. In 2018, Mehdi surprised us when we visited Katwe, and he introduced us to his new Katwe dance group. Mehdi organized them and hired dance and acrobat coaches to teach them. I was so happy to see a program that was something positive and fun. They all looked so young, healthy, and happy. I could not believe how professional they looked. I learned that the young dancers were former street children. It was hard for me to see them now, smiling, happy, and energetic. Yet a few years ago, they were the dirty street children we had just seen in the garbage dump. It was a miracle transformation. As street children, they never had a chance to get an education. All of the dance team are too old to start school now. And Mehdi wants to make sure that they're getting skills so they can be employed. He's trying to focus on vocational training for them. They promised to not return to the streets, and now all live in 2 rooms, one for boys and one for girls, and they live in a safe and secure home. I soon started laughing and clapping as the dancers performed. They were just young teens with an awful past. Yet now, they were young teens having a good time, much like all of the other young people that I knew. At the end, they introduced themselves.
My name is Dukushi Mary Chan. Hi guys, I'm by the names of Namasisi, Suiz Mazina. Everyone. I'm by names of Rachel Keys.
Hello guys, my name is Sirova. Myself, Walusebi Alex. The stage name I used Louis Daily.
Then they started singing songs written by themselves, telling about their life in the slums, their struggles, their hopes, and their dreams.
So I composed it through my life experience. So another song, it is in Uganda, it is called Omutima, the heart.
After following the dancers and acrobats for 2 years, I learned that they started out as great talents ghetto kids, and 2 years later became Uganda certified as Born Talented. They now perform in local shows around Kampala and earn money for their performances.
To ever leave challenges, go and we keep moving. Yes. So we should not go anywhere. A tough man in tough times eat problems. And when problems get finished or come to an end, that person will enjoy peace.
I often would think how Mehdi and all the people I had met survived physically and emotionally. For Mehdi, I learned that it was his strong belief and a strong faith in God, and faith in people he trusted, and most of all, faith in himself. When Mehdi was a street child, he met Pastor Stephen, who provided food for Mehdi, and he also provided much emotional and spiritual support. And through all of this, he had a strong sense of wanting to help those who were in his situation. He wanted to save them, just like Pastor Stephen and Victoria saved him. He continued to grow spiritually with the support of Pastor Awori. I accompanied Mehdi to Midyana to meet with a pastor who guided and mentored Mehdi after serving in the Midyana Pentecostal Church. He told me how he studied there and preached for a year in order to become a pastor. After 1 year, he became Pastor Mehdi. I had never heard Mehdi preach until one day in 2018. Mehdi was scheduled to preach at Bright Kids Uganda, the place where he had his first real home. I made sure I had my camera with me as I wanted to capture his prayers and words. I was not disappointed. While I waited for Medi to speak, I was greeted by the Bright Kids Uganda children singing. I knew that all of these children had horrible lives. Some were abandoned, some were orphans, some had HIV, some were impacted by gender violence. But one thing they all had was that they came from places just like Medi did, and now they are okay. They're singing, praying, and hopeful for a future. Medi arrived with his wife Daisy. I saw them praying and singing with the children. He hugged Victoria. Remember, it all started a long time ago when Medi was a street child and did not have any hope. Then Medi started to speak with a message about his life and most of all, of hope.
Praise God. Yes, praise God. Bugembe Medi. Bugembe Medi. Sing for God. Study hard at school. Study hard at school. You will one time, one day, look like me and more than me. So in 1995, January, last January, I came on the streets of Kampala. And that's where Madame Victoria Namasisi got me from. But she got me when I had spent 6 years in the States.
I again asked Medi if he still was singing in concerts to earn money to feed not only his own family, but mainly of those 50-plus Katwe children who lived with him. He said he still is performing at concerts again and again and again. And this time, he sang for the children at Bright Kids Uganda that sunny Sunday morning. He sang his song filled with pain about his life, but mostly about hope. Feeding his 350-plus children at his children's center is a challenge too, and singing at concerts could no way feed, clothe, and provide shelter to all of the children. So one day, Medi told me about his farm, and he asked me to ride with him to see it. It was a long 4-hour drive, as we passed small villages, and soon were in the fertile countryside in central Uganda. We drove off the tarred road onto a red dirt road, and soon a dirt path. We then arrived, and when I got out of the car, I was amazed at how fertile and lush the land was. Medi said with pride that this was his land. He led, and I followed along with his hard-working farm workers. On our walk, I was shown the cassava, beans, coffee, corn, pawpaws, mangoes, bananas, and many more fruits and vegetables that I did not even know the names of. I also met his very proud farm workers who labored every day in the hot sun and driving rain so that Medi's land would produce enough food for his children. Medi told me how he purchased this fertile farmland in central Uganda. He now owns enough land and farms it to feed his children. He travels every 3 months to collect the farm harvest and brings it back to great kings and queens. Challenges continue in a developing country like Uganda. Heavy torrential rains are common in equatorial Uganda. Dry roads would soon become raging rivers. Floods often caused his school courtyard to flood and also would flood the classrooms. Then the boys' latrine also collapsed, and Medi's school would have been closed again. Foreign financial support came to help to rebuild the latrines and dig trenches to divert the water into drains. Once again, Medi's school was saved from closing down. The torrential rains would also flood Katwe too. Medi told me that many children would die when they crossed over on the wooden bridges. I told him that I would help somehow, and soon money was given to Medi to construct a proper concrete bridge. When I returned a few months later, I was so happy to walk over that bridge. I was told that Katwe was very happy too, because little did I know that it was a main walkway from one part of Katwe to the other. No one has lost their life since the bridge was built, and no child would be swept away and killed when the rains came and the water trenches would overflow. You have no idea how many other bridges that are dangerous to cross that are there in Katwe. At least this one is made safer. I met 2 of the children Medi rescued from Katwe. I asked Medi if he could take me to Katwe so I could see where and how we found these 2 children. On a busy road in Katwe, we met the woman who found the 2 children. Her name is Betty. Betty cooks food every day and sells her food for a living. The 2 children would often come to Betty looking for food. Betty said that they were dirty, starving street children, and they would often come to her and ask for food.
Irish potatoes, matoke. She prepares lunch and supper and breakfast.
I asked many questions. How did Betty meet the children? How long did she know them? How long did she feed them? I learned that she would feed them every day and did that for 2 years. She's a good woman. She does not have a lot of money to just give her food away for free. So she has a big heart.
They were working here with a friend. There was a friend with whom she was working. So they found those 2 boys together. That she's saying she just felt, because she has children, she just felt as a mother, seeing those children just sleeping here and moving. So she felt touched and decided to at least help them. Now, when she saw those 2, she felt so bad. But again, she had me, because she had a boy at my school. So she knew what I was doing.
Oh, she has one of her boys are at your school.
Yeah. So that's why she tried to convince me such that I can take those children.
Were they in good health when she found them? What was their health like?
That's what she said. That's what makes them feel sad, because you see children not in good health. Yeah, and you said they prepare food. Those children don't have anybody who provides the food for them. So when they see somebody who can give them something to eat, they will always rotate around that person, just because you have food.
How soon after she found them did she contact you?
She told me she had seen those children for a year.
A year?
A year.
And for her to share, she doesn't have a lot of money to just give away her food for free either, so she has a big heart. She's a good woman.
Yeah.
Good woman.
I knew the children she was talking about. I met them at Medi's school, Great Kings and Queens. They're now healthy, happy, and learning. Could not believe that just a few years ago, they were like the street children I was seeing right before my eyes. Great Kings and Queens is now their new home. While talking to Betty and Medi, I looked down the ravine and saw the tunnel where the street children sleep. Seeing children and men hauling large bags of plastic bottles, which they sell to be recycled, is a constant reminder on how people survive and the challenges these street children face every single day. If it were not for Betty to contact Medi, and for Medi to rescue these 2 children, they most likely would be still living on the streets, hauling plastic bottles, or may not even be alive. I then asked Medi, what do you think would happen to these children if Betty had not fed them?
You saw last time when we went to the other garbage bin. They were going to just spend all their life passing by that same life. If at all she did not come up to help them. If at all she had not talked to me, you never know, you would not find them. Yeah. So at this time you would find them, they have never gone to school, they are starving, and you would see it would be difficult to change those children.
He continually talks about his life in the slums again and again, and each time I learn something new, and I know it brings back sad and painful memories for Mehdi, but it also encourages him to continue saving these children.
And so when you have these memories come back, how do you feel?
I feel bad, and it gives me courage to continue helping children in that situation. I feel bad, and I just think these children are also having the same thoughts in their brain. So I should help them the more. I should continue helping them. There are times I find like maybe there is no food to feed them, others are sick and I don't have money. I say now this project is killing me, but if the thoughts come back that at least this one is better than the other side, I continue, I get courage to help those children.
Life continues on in Katwe. People trying to make a living, to survive, to have money to educate their children. Then there are those who do not survive. Mehdi is just one person trying to rescue them and give them a life. All of the 44 Katwe children Mehdi saved are doing well and thriving in his school. One day, Mehdi asked me to come and watch his newly formed soccer team. The team is made up of children Mehdi rescued from Katwe slums and who now attend his school. The first game was on a soccer field in Katwe. I was amazed at how this field was in the middle of a marketplace. With people selling items during the game, there were no lines marking the field, just an open ground with goalposts at each end. During the game, people would just walk through the field while the players kicked the ball. What impressed me, though, despite the condition of the field, that these soccer players came from Katwe, Mehdi's team all were former street children. It is amazing the pride Mehdi has given to these children, who just a few years ago were scavenging for food in the garbage dump. Mehdi has a winning soccer team. They are winning trophies, and people are now wanting to send their children to Great Kings and Queens Children's Center so their children can be part of this winning team. In the next few weeks, I went with Mehdi and his soccer team for an official game in Katira. After a several-hour drive, we arrived in Katira. But before we met with the soccer players, Mehdi wanted me to see something first. This was an important place because it was the small village where Mehdi lived as a very, very young boy, and he wanted me to see the place where he lived. I know that this brought back many memories of the abuse he endured. This is also the place where he found out his mother is buried. When we arrived at the village, we were met by villagers who knew Mehdi, and they greeted him very warmly. Mehdi led the way through the wooded area. As we descended into the lush fields, we ended up at his mother's burial place. We encircled his mother's grave, and Mehdi said a private prayer. I wish I could have read his mind as he touched his mother's gravestone, the woman he never really knew. I am sure he thought of a mother's love he never had, and also the abuses he endured with his life living with a stepmother. And now he returns, a grown man, successful, and arriving this day with a soccer team of children who were saved just like he was. I met several of his villagers who remembered him as a little boy. I could see the proud look on his face and was amazed at how sincerely kind he was to them, despite all of his bad memories. I met 2 women who remembered him when he was a little boy and who knew his mother. You could see the love Mehdi had for these 2 women. We then ventured to meet the soccer team and watch them play. Remember, these are kids who were living on the streets just a few years ago. Both teams were tough and well-trained. Both teams knew the challenges that they faced. The Katira team consisted of strong rural boys, and they knew they faced the tough Great Kings and Queens team who survived the life in the slums. I was so impressed with the coaches from both teams. They emphasized to the team members that playing a fair game was important, and no matter who scored the most points, they were all winners.
It has been a fair game. Very fair. Thank you for playing well and continue with the spirit of building your team. May you please continue building your talents. Don't relax. Okay? Yes. Much as you have won, the struggle continues. Continue and develop your talents so that in the future you will become good players. You may become national players, international players. Please.
After a tough game, trophies were given to both teams. By the way, Medi's team won. After the game and the victorious soccer team left for the Great Kings and Queens home, Medi had a special surprise for me. He told me I was to meet the woman named Rose who took care of him when he was 5 years old when he was beaten with a padlock on his leg. I finally met Rose, who healed Medi's leg in Katira and saved his life. After first meeting Medi in 2013, I finally could thank the woman who took Medi to the clinic and helped heal those awful leg wounds. If it were not for her, Medi would not have been alive. So Medi did return back to his village, and I was able to record with my camera a proud and successful man with a great future. He now works with the village elders, and they are very proud of him, of what he has accomplished. Medi continues to this day helping and saving the Kotway Street children. He not only helps children, but he helps adults as well. Medi still continues to help those in need, even though he tells me that his hands are short with lack of financial support. He met a woman in Kotway who is disabled and unable to care for her 5 children. He found out that she was robbed and for years taken advantage of because she's disabled. Medi opened up his heart and school to help her. He opened up his school for her 5 children and is helping her to be safe. He made arrangements for her to have a safe place to stay in Kotway. Medi is not only busy being the Great Kings and Queens director, he also teaches every day. He does find time to visit Kotway several times a week to meet with the political leaders. He inquires about their families and always tries to help the street children. So now, it is 2020. Little did we know that challenges and disasters would strike again. The coronavirus struck Uganda and all was shut down. Medi could not keep his school open for another year, and he struggled to find ways to pay his teachers, the rent, and electrical bills. Also, he would ask me, how was he going to pay for the 44 Kotway children who call Great Kings and Queens their home? Thankfully, again, some foreign money support came to help feed the 44 Kotway children. Remember, Medi is their mother, their father, and this is the only home they know. Money came for emergency food and to pay the teachers and the electric bill. Then the disasters kept coming, and Medi found out that the schools were closed for the entire school year. But this would not stop Medi. Being ever so resourceful, he asked for some capital funds to open a food store. So now he goes to the villagers and he buys food from them and he sells it at a profit in the city near his school. So Medi survives once again. He also has his children plowing the land near his school and planting it with crops to feed the children. It supplements what he gets from his farm and also what he gets selling from his store. If all goes well, in a few years he will own the land where his school and center are. He's now married and he has his own family. And with Mehdi's strong faith in God and himself, I know he will succeed. Not only is Mehdi guided by his deep religious faith, he always tells me how he has smiles painted on his face whenever I visit and at times bring visitors. Our nonprofit provides the financial support to help him, and most of all, to help the children. During one of my visits, Mehdi presented me with a gift, and here it is. It truly sums up Mehdi's dream to help those who are just like him, to give them a chance, and most of all, to never give up.